Let's delve into this story in greater detail, understand a little bit more about the background, how it reached such a situation. Joining in on the show, we've got Dhiraj Mathur. He's aviation expert and independent director, ex-partner, PwC, and retired IAS. We've also got Mahantesh Sabarad, independent market expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking time out. To begin with you then, Mr. Mathur, I just want to understand, basis your understanding of the sector as a whole, was the industry aware about these kind of troubles that have been brewing at Go First before the kind of declaration and announcements that were made just last evening? And how difficult a flight plan has this been on? For how long have these troubles been brewing?
See, I think Go Air ordered 72 A320 neos from Airbus in 2011. And there were delays from the very, very beginning. In fact, Pratt & Whitney was unable to supply engines on time, so the delivery of the aircraft got delayed. And then subsequently, these engines, the particular engines that are on this aircraft, started developing technical problems. And I think the COVID period disrupted the manufacturing and the supply chain. And it would appear, though PW is not very forthcoming about this on this matter, so this is partly conjecture. It would appear that it hasn't been able to get its supply chain up and running. It has accepted that they have supply chain issues, which they feel will improve by the end of the year. So this issue was very much there. Indigo also has the same engine. They've been having problems. There are other airlines, international airlines, China Air Express, for example, that have also had trouble with the Pratt & Whitney engines. So, and then, if you see, there in December 2019, 7% of their fleet was grounded. That number is increased to around 50% by December last year. So all of this was happening. If you look at the, and it was out there in the open. And I think when Go Air submitted their summer schedule to DGCA this year, I believe they had cut back compared to last year by about 40%. So I think the Go Air issue, the troubles that they were having with Pratt & Whitney were very much in the public domain. There was nothing secret about it.
All right. Now, Mahantesh, I want to understand the implications from the lender's point of view. Financial creditors have an exposure of over 6,500 crore rupees, the likes of IDBI Bank, Deutsche Bank, Central Bank, BOB, the list is quite extensive. This is clearly going to be a huge hit for a lot of these financial creditors.
Yeah, in a way, it is going to be a huge hit for these financial creditors. But also let us understand that there are certain underlying assets, particularly the aircrafts on order that they have, which can realize certain amount of money, including termination of leases. Some of the leases that they have, these outstanding, if they are restructured, there is a potential that they could be recovering some portion of the account. But the recovery, I don't want to sound very optimistic. The recovery will not be exceeding anywhere 25, 30 odd %. So the exposure of the banks will remain uncovered for quite a duration. A revival may not necessarily also help the airline. So it's going to be very tough unless some suitor comes in and decides to take over the loans. It's going to be very difficult.
So, Mr. Mathur, if we could just understand from your outpoint now, given that the airline has filed for bankruptcy and now they have, now the insolvency procedure is going to play out, do you think, as Mahantesh said, unless we see someone really swoop in and save the airline, there isn't really going to be any other route?
No, see, funds can come in from three sources. One, they filed a suit against Pratt & Whitney in the US, and they've claimed, I think, 8,000 crores as compensation. I would expect Pratt & Whitney to settle this issue out of court because they appear clearly to be in default of contractual obligations. So I would imagine that That is what is likely to happen. Besides the reputational hit that Pratt and Whitney is going to take because of this. The second source of funds would be the promoters. I mean, the Wadia Group is a very strong group. Some of their companies are Britannia as a cash cow, and they're very strong companies. And so the promoters can also, they have put in, I think I read about 3,500 crores, 3,600 crore rupees in the last 2-3 years. So that could be a second source of funds. In terms of the third, finding a suitor for somebody to buy out the Wadia stake, that might be a little tough, given the situation right now. I would imagine there won't be very many people who would have the appetite. And as someone said, it might be easier to start a new airline rather than revive or buy an airline that's in the red. So that's my personal assessment, that they will get money from that from Pratt and Whitney. They will get that. If not 8,000, I don't know what the number will be, but I think it would be wise for Pratt and Whitney to settle this out of court, because they've admitted that they have supply chain problems. They've got 2 rulings against them in the Singapore arbitration. So, they clearly don't seem to be on a strong legal wicket.
You're expecting an out-of-court settlement. Mahantesh, if I were to look at it from the other standpoint of what this is doing to some of the other aviation majors, there have been some new players as well that have recently come in. We're seeing, for example, Interglobe Aviation or Indigo, that stock is flying high in today's trading session. Given that it is quite a competitive landscape in the Indian skies right now, this is going to be very advantageous to a lot of these existing players, right?
Already there are, if you look at the Indian aviation market now, we already have a lot of players already in the market. That means what I'm essentially saying is that it's become quite competitive as it is. Gone are the days when a decade ago we used to have count airlines on the fingertips, 4-5 airlines would be there, with some of them hogging the market share. Today we have the market share fairly spread, and the number of players are too large, and the aviation market has started to grow once again post the COVID block that we saw. So I would reckon that while the industry is certainly attractive, it's become very competitive, and some of the financial aspects of running an airline are quite tough to really overcome, particularly the exchange rate, particularly the fuel costs, etc., which are financially burdensome for many airlines, including the top ones. So I would reckon that while there are other players that do exist, unless you have a bit of consolidation once again happening, you will not see the industry players remaining healthy.
Okay, and so Mr. Mathur, I just want to understand, given that this is the next fallout that we saw after the Jet Airways saga took place, do you think that there are any lessons now that can be learned for some of the existing players?
Certainly, negotiate your contracts with your suppliers, engine and aircraft suppliers better. But I mean, so this is just plain bad luck as far as Go First is concerned, right? Now they bought Airbuses, fuel efficient planes, and that was they were one of the early airlines to go in for those so-called green planes, and so they made everything right. They've ordered 72 planes. Pratt and Whitney is it's a reputed engine manufacturer. So this is just plain bad luck that has struck them. I guess, I mean, and it can happen to anyone, because most of these things were beyond their control. If they don't have engines, how are they going to fly the aircraft? They don't fly the aircraft, how are they going to get the revenue? A lot of their costs are fixed. They can't do anything. The lease rent and so on. The debt, and I believe they haven't defaulted on any of the debtors. They've defaulted on they have not defaulted on the financial debtors, the defaults are largely on the operational lenders, the vendors and the lessors. So, as I said, it the lesson would be, yeah, be very careful about contracts. But when the counterparty defaults on a contractual obligation, when it defies an arbitration award, which is issued once and then reconfirmed, I mean, what else can go first do? So I think they've done the sensible thing of coming to the NCLT. The whole purpose of the bankruptcy code is to provide them a safe haven, a temporary safe haven, while they attempt to restructure their operations. In this case, they'll have to wait for the engines to be supplied and for the compensation to be given and some additional funds to be raised. But they should keep the airlines operational, because if they shut it down, it'll be very difficult to start again. And that is one big lesson we learned from Jet. But I think it's a sensible thing they've done, going to NCLT. That's what the bankruptcy code is for.
Fair enough. Let's see how that materializes going forward. But a lot of lessons to be learned. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us with this discussion.